In a cavern, in a canyon, excavating for a mine, dwelt a miner, 49er, and his daughter, Clementine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Drove she ducklings to the water every morning just at 9, stopped her foot against a splinter, fell into the foaming brine. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. Bom bom bom, bom bom bom, bom bom bom, bom bom bom.
Ruby lips above the water, blowing bubbles soft and fine. But alas, I was no swimmer, so I lost my Clementine.
Oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine. In my dreams she still doth haunt me, robed in garments soaked in brine. How in life I used to hug her, now she's gone, I draw the line. Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you are lost and gone forever, dreadful sorry Clementine.
Hello and welcome once again to the Dr. Zeero Free Magic Secret Show, where we investigate all forms of magic throughout world history and all across the globe. Talk about different techniques, and if you notice, this channel is all about mind power more than anything else. This is the standpoint of why magic is important and the best magic that works. And we try to separate crankery from what can be validated in a lot of scientific senses. Now, Dr. Zeero Show likes to theorize a lot about the internal plane. And the internal plane, the inner constitution of an individual, something that can't really be mapped by science. It can be mapped by psychology, but it's kind of a vague area. We don't know how to demonstratively explain the different effects and different planes of manifestation within an individual's own spiritual being, you could say. And these are all, of course, unscientific terms, but it's a whole field, and that's what the cult's about, learning these things. So one little topic that's very important to all this is it's called NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Now, you've probably might have heard about this because this is what is known as something where you could, technically brainwash someone using NLP. You could turn someone into a Manchurian candidate, theoretically, if you were some black ops division doing weird stuff with the person's mind. But in general, NLP is basically using language itself to remodel the internal plane and to remodel one's psychology and to provoke different stimuluses and different actions and from the experiences people have. But so getting back to the point of how this all intersects is that in front of me, I got a book by Andrea Vitimus. It's called Hands-on Chaos Magic, Reality Manipulation Through the Ovayki Current, O-V-A-Y-K-I Current. Never heard of it. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. I was going to read the section about NLP and at least what it says about it. Now, a little word on this book. Here's what the back says. This irreverent guide to chaos magic emphasizes experimentation and finding out what works best for you. Andrea Vitamis presents a revolutionary hands-on course of study for the average Jane or Joe. Vitamis banishes the severe tone of other esoteric orders, offering an accessible and practical approach that makes it easier to perform successful chaos magic that is uniquely your own. And it says that Vitamis here from Ohio has been a practicing magician for over 15 years in multiple systems. He has taught metaphysical classes at Alchemy Arts in Chicago and at conventions including Aeon, Ancient Ways, Real Witches Ball, Convocation, and Sirius Rising. So this is on Llewellyn Books. Now, before I jump into it, if you don't know what chaos magic is, it doesn't mean, chaos. The word chaos is a, I guess, poetic term to describe the cosmos and all of the wild things going on in it. And there's a larger reason why, and you have to read the other more founding texts of chaos magic, but it's basically like this. Chaos magic, it appeared in the 1970s in like the UK and different spots in Europe. And it was basically when all this magic stuff ended up in the more like the punk rock subculture and all the different squats and the anarchist squats and in the left, ultra left wing political circles. It's when this sort of crowd started reapproaching magic and saying like, we can use this ourselves. And then it's the idea that magic is basically, if it works, use it, and you can pull anything from any tradition, and basically like an anarchist approach to magic. And this is very similar to like what Dr. Zeero is really all about, even though Doc here isn't going to use necessarily the term chaos magic, because this person speaking these words isn't a fan of labels, to be honest. But there's no harm in digging around at the chaos magic stuff and learning what you can. So the book in my hands, this hands-on chaos magic, is basically a book of techniques. It doesn't really get deep into like the philosophical theory or the different ethics or, the kind of stuff like you're going to find with Peter J. Carroll's works or Phil Hines' works, all of which you should read if you're listening out there. This one's just like a big book of techniques. And that's why it's important and can be applied to anyone, like anybody practicing witchcraft or into the occult or into even new age stuff. Anything you're doing where you're working with the energies, the internal energies, and trying to hone and condition them and work with them to just make yourself a stronger individual on so many different levels. So I just wanted to read the little bit on NLP that Mr. Vitamis has created here. Do excuse me, I'm drinking a little coffee. It's early in the morning. So this is chapter 6, page 35, using cognitive science or NLP in our magic. So generally speaking, NLP is a system to study how people encode information and perception into memory, and in some cases, meaning. Neuro refers to neurons, or the 5 sensory systems through which our bodies receive input. Linguistic refers to how our language models our internal world. Programming is a term from computer science regarding the construction of applications that respond in exact ways to input. NLP sees thoughts and feelings as habitual programs of response to inputted stimuli. The metaphor is that the mind itself is a computer. This particular idea is not entirely new, as both behaviorist and cognitive perspectives in psychology adopt similar ideas that the mind merely responds via habit or conditioning. NLP has some core assumptions that are slightly different in different books, including NLP, The New Technology of Achievement by Andreas and Faulkner from 1994, but they come down to the same ideas. The first premise is very important. Essentially, this supposition asserts that your experience of the world is not the world. The perception of the world is not the world. Your model and perception of the world is not the world. Many other occult authors have repeatedly pointed out that your perception of the world has an impact on the world you live in. Donald Michael Craig has an identify, objectify, and banish ritual just to alter perceptions in the world. Personally, I've given lectures on changing perceptions as well. The map or model of the world is never the world. This, in practical terms, means that your perception is never the world. The second general across-the-board idea is that we encode our experiences into memory using the 5 senses, and the patterns those senses make determine the general meaning of the experiences. Most NLP books will call this the structure of the experience. A related but unlisted correlative of this tenet is what makes NLP so powerful. For our adventure, that means experiences are made up of information. Changes to the actual remembered sensory information, or to the order of how the senses are put together, alters the experience you had. As we have already seen in many of our exercises, there is a lingering and lasting effect. Trance states and relaxation take a minute or two for us to come out of. Neurotransmitters do get released when we attempt meditation or magic. The mind doesn't really know the difference between a memory and a fantasy, and it produces the same neurochemicals whether the experience is from a memory, a fantasy, or an actual experience. In many cases, neurological studies indicate that the brain does not know the difference between the two states of consciousness, although the ego consciousness assigns a different label to the different states of consciousness, which again refers to the structuring of the experience. Taking this a bit further, we come to the conclusion that there is little or no separation between the mind and the body. As author Andy Bradbury would say, your mind and your body are indivisible parts of the same system. Other assumptions that NLP uses include the following. You are always communicating, and the end result gives you the meaning of that verbal or nonverbal communication. You must try different things if what you're doing isn't working. All failure is merely information you can use to achieve your goal or steer your direction. You have the needed internal resources to accomplish any goal, but that doesn't mean you know how to use it or where to find it inside. This idea is based on the fact that you learn all the time. Any experience, talent, or skill one person has can be carefully studied, modeled, and transmitted to a different person by relating one person's map of the world to another person's map of the world. Usually, more is more in NLP, meaning that the more sensory data and the greater the intensity of those experiences, the greater weight we can give them. Given that the brain does not know the difference between a memory and an event, for reality manipulations, the greater amount of sensory information and the intensity of the information will help to convince the brain that even an imagined experience is real. This only works when the sensory information is consistent with the chosen theme for an experience. NLP, the new technology of achievement, gives an exercise where you apply a soundtrack to an experience and then rerun the experience with a soundtrack that mismatches the experience. Try this. Merely by changing the soundtrack, you associate the experience with something incongruent, and you can change and lessen the impact of the experience. Generally, what this means is that we can lessen the effect of negative experiences by making the senses involved with the memory seem less vivid. So make the colors duller or even black and white. Imagine heavy feelings becoming less heavy. Imagine viewing the situation as if it were a movie instead of seeing the situation through your own eyes. Step back from the memory and, if possible, perceive it as a snapshot on the wall. Anything that reduces the sensory weight of an experience can reduce its impact on you. You have to experiment with this to understand it. Take an experience that you believe had a large impact on you in a negative way and see what you remember about it. Write down the details. Then take an experience that had little impact on you, such as a morning commute, and compare this experience to the negative experience. What happens when you make the more extreme experience look and feel like the everyday one in your memory? My fellow adventurer, I encouraged you to look up more resources about NLP and the NLP suppositions from an internet search. Many of these ideas are encapsulated in the games and exercises of this adventure. So, we're going to talk about enhancing positive experiences. Poll your associates and friends. Gather some experiences that they were really happy for you about. These could be any types of experiences. Choose 2 experiences from this list. Before starting, relax, breathe, and clear your head. First, choose an experience that you deem very important and also one that other people may have enthusiasm for, but you personally are neutral toward. Revisit each experience. Record all the sensations you can remember about the positive and important situation. How does this compare with what you can remember from the neutral event? In your mind's eye, try to add information to the neutral event until it has as much sensory input as the more important event. If you see the neutral event, move yourself from watching the event as an observer to becoming an active participant. As a participant, keep adding details until there is roughly the same amount of details as the more important event. Try to add details in a way that is similar to the types of details you remembered regarding the first event. While relaxing, just add details that seem to make sense for the scene, regardless of the accuracy. Check the results a few days after the experiment. Relax, clear your mind, and breathe. Try to remember the second experience now. Does the second experience seem to have more information contained in the memory? How do you feel about the second experience? How does the second experience now compare to the first? What details or ideas came about from revisiting and working with the second experience? Of course, if either this experiment or the last experiment didn't work, try a different visualization. A quick modality introduction. Improving your NLP and Magick abilities. In NLP, everyone has one or more sensory channels that have a greater impact on his or her encoding of experience than other channels. This is referred to as a modality, and in general, people will encode information in one of the 5 senses. Usually, a person will have one sense that is the primary way he or she incorporates data. Some people will use a primary sense to incorporate their experiences, while other people will switch depending on which situation or type of situation they are in. NLP will switch which sense is used in which situation in order to help people adapt to it. Many Magick books assume a visual orientation. This can be a tremendous problem for people who do not work well with the visual modality. Magick can be worked from any of the senses. If there are any examples that do not resonate well with you, try to rework them into your preferred sensory modality. For instance, instead of seeing a pentagram, carve and feel it in the air, and listen to the buzzing and whizzing sound it makes. From this magician's point of view, it is optimal to develop all the sensory encoding abilities for all the senses. In fact, to develop the ability to use your imagination in all 5 senses, or at least multiple senses, is a great empowerment to magic. Your brain will believe the magic is more real. However, each person will use a certain sense more strongly to encapsulate information in the experience. Several exercises in the later parts of this book attempt to work on this exact point. Once you get past yourself, the subconscious mind can be the greatest magician of all. A simple technique for discovering your preferred modality for a given situation is to simply consider the words you use to describe that situation. Words like I see and many visual cues indicate a visual modality. Tactile words or feelings like weight, carve, hard, etc. indicate a kinetic modality. Verbal words or phrases such as I hear or can you hear what I'm saying indicate an auditory modality. It is beyond the scope of this book to dive deeper into the details of NLP. However, even by looking at how you describe a situation, you can see that there is a preferred method of encapsulating the memory in one of the 5 senses. Now, try to pick a memory that is not entirely positive. How do you describe this event? Write down the description. Is there a preferred sense or modality that is tied to the memory? I want you to sit down and rewrite the memory using a totally different sense. If you had at first written out the memory using terms like the weight, crushing, etc., which are all tactile and feeling modalities, write out the memory using only verbal cues like colors, I see, etc. Rereading the memory, how do you feel about the experience? When you are starting out, though, do not do try to include details from the sense you are the most comfortable with in your workings. A wee bit of anchoring operant conditioning. Anchoring is another very useful technique, but really anchoring is merely a form of conditioning well known to cognitive science, behaviorism, and psychology. The idea is very simple. A gesture, word, scent, or bit of sensory information can be conditioned to recreate a state of mind, especially if that state of mind leaves a strong enough impression or if an anchor is repeated enough. Our minds don't always remember the event that caused the original link, and it may produce the state of mind outside of the original context. An example of this would be if someone got hit in the stomach while eating a red berry. Even the sight of a red berry might trigger the pain in the stomach or at least trigger the memory of the experience. For very traumatic events, or when a person is in an altered state of consciousness, he or she may not remember the original events at all, and what is triggered is only a state of mind. Realistically, we have many more anchors than we are aware of. Often one situation will trigger an emotional response or a certain state of mind because it has tangential surface details similar to a past experience. Essentially, our subconscious mind can slip back to that mental state and generate it in our current mindset without conscious intervention. Therefore, the subconscious mind acts as if the situation is exactly the same, and in trying to protect you, it brings back the emotional intellectual effect. Earlier in our adventure, we used some relaxation techniques known as progressive relaxation. Let's go back to those experiences for a minute. Try to redo the open door exercise, but as you finish the exercise, press the thumb of your right hand to the index finger of your right hand with some pressure. Continue to stay as deeply relaxed as you possibly can while holding your index finger to your thumb. Now stand up, wait a few minutes, and then, again using your right hand, press your index finger to your thumb. What is the effect? Any experience or the memory of the experience can be anchored to a simple word, gesture, smell, or taste to produce a state of mind. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was your explanation of NLP and a little bit about how that works and mental conditioning. And, there's a lot of important bits of information there that you can use to strengthen your own mind and your own magical practice and all kinds of little thingamajigs and whatnot and thingamaboobers. And as always, hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. When you're at the bar with your friends and you're talking about magic stuff, be like, hey, there's this YouTube channel. It's really hot. It's the good stuffs. He always plays this great music and tells us all this stuff, and it's a secret show. It's very secret. It's only meant for those who find it and those who can interpret the information and make it work. So, that much said, blah, 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 yakety smackety. You know the deal. And we will return with future episodes. And, as always, here's a hot rockin' outro just for you. Or maybe it's just for me because I want to hear it. But anyway, that's it. Later, kids.